All right, let's get into it, shall we? I want to talk to you about implementing endpoint security. When we talk about securing an organization, we can't ignore the endpoints, also known as client devices. Those are laptops, desktops, servers, mobile devices, and even IoT gadgets that people use every day. If those aren't locked down properly, attackers can use them as entry points into the whole network. Let's walk through practical ways to harden and protect these devices. The first way is device hardening. Device hardening is like putting your system on a diet, stripping away everything it doesn't need to reduce the number of ways attackers can break in. We're talking about turning off unneeded features, prohibiting application download, keeping software up to date, requiring strong passwords, and limiting who access. Disable what you don't use. For example, interfaces. If you have Wi Fi and Ethernet but only need one, turn off the other. When it comes to services, disable unused background services to shrink your attack surface. And as far as ports are concerned, if remote access isn't needed, block those application ports, especially non standard ones that attackers love to abuse. Every little change can make a big difference. Let's talk operating system security. The operating system is the beating heart of any endpoint. If it's not protected, everything else is at risk. Good operating system security involves strong access control and authentication, turning off unused services, securing configurations based on best practices, keeping patches current, endpoint protection like antivirus, training the users to spot threats, and monitoring and logging everything. So, just so you know, you can lock down a system too tightly. Make sure it's usable for real work. Too much security will only motivate your users to think of ways to circumvent them. So always practice balanced security with what the system actually needs to do. That's where baseline configurations come in handy. Security baselines are pre-made configuration templates developed by experts. They tell you exactly how to secure different types of systems like workstations, file servers, DNS servers, just to name a few. If you're using a Windows machine, they store security baselines in the registry and apply them using Group Policy Objects, GPOs. You can use tools like Security Compliance Toolkit to compare live systems against the baseline and catch anything that drifted out of compliance. A baseline is a template, and a good one should give you a hardened system. Now, we discussed hardening endpoints in general. I want you to now focus on workstation hardening. These are high risk because users interact with them consistently and users make mistakes. So it's important we lock them down. We can do things like remove software that's not needed. We can limit who have admin access. We can control what gets installed. We can enable things like auto updates, a host based firewall, and screen locks. We can disable unused USB ports. We can segment network by role or department, like separating HR from IT department. By the way, you can configure everything perfectly, but if your user fall for phishing emails, your network is still in danger. Regular security training and awareness is key. If an endpoint compromise is detected, your network should be prepared to isolate devices so threat cannot spread. This is especially helpful against ransom or worms that try to move laterally through the network. Modern endpoint protection goes way beyond traditional antivirus. It now looks for Trojan, spyware, cryptojackers. These are spywares that secretly use someone else's computer to mine crypto, and potentially unwanted programs, PUPs. Now, here's another thing to consider. Some people think because their laptop has a complicated password, it's safe from hackers. That is far from the truth. All you have to do is remove the disk and plug it into a disk reader to own the data. It's so easy, an unskilled hacker can do it, given the right screwdriver and wire. But never fear, full disk encryption will encrypt the whole drive, so even if someone were to steal a device, they can't read it. FDE, full disk encryption, protects laptops, servers, USBs, even IoT devices. Sometimes they're on the TPM chips, the Trusted Platform Module chips. This is hardware in compatible machines that secure stored encryption keys. And then you have self encrypting drives, SEDs. These are good because they reduce performance loss and store keys internally. If TPM isn't available, you can store keys on a USB. Remember, encryption is your safety net when physical access is lost. Now I want to talk to you about patch management. Even the best system becomes vulnerable if it's outdated. Vendor release patches to fix vulnerabilities. If you don't apply them, attackers will exploit those known weaknesses. And you should not apply patches at will. That's how you break things. And you don't want to do that. Here's a common enterprise patch strategy. First, they test to avoid breaking things. Then they deploy the patches regularly, but cautiously and communicate to everyone that may be impacted. Then they automate where possible because you don't want to patch one machine at a time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Sometimes you may find legacy or IoT devices without patch options. You'll need compensating controls like network isolation and strict monitoring. All right, that's all for now about endpoint security. Here's a recap. We learned device hardening means to remove unnecessary features to reduce risk. We learned baseline configuration and GPO ensure consistent system settings. We also learned that workstations need both technical and user education. We learned that encryption, antivirus, and segmentation improve endpoint defense. Lastly, we learned patch management is non negotiable. Test and deploy regularly. See you in the next one.